When we speak, we are afraid our words will not be heard or welcomed. But when we are silent, we are still afraid. So it's better to speak. Audre Lorde.
We get into this train. The train is going to take us, it's like going to be a day and a half on this train, and they can't get us the couchettes, which is the sleeping cars. So we're seated in this train in these big chairs, and we're going to be that way for the next 48 hours. And we're going up and we're passing through the jungle, and then all of a sudden the train stops and there's this blaze, and one of the train cars has caught on fire. And so all these people are rushing out, and the Peace Corps, our handlers, are stay in the car, because they don't want all these young people running out into the jungle with everybody else. And so we're in the car, but we don't know what's going on. And then suddenly people are trying to run into our car because that car has been caught on fire. And what they did is they just pushed it out into the jungle to leave it there and then rehooked it. But everyone that was in the fire car is now left in the jungle. And so people are trying to fight on to come into our space. And the Peace Corps staff is you're not coming on. And so there's this huge fight. And then I just remember leaving with this train car in the jungle and these poor people at the station. And then we just went up to Ngaoundere, where then we got on a bus that took us 5 hours to Garoua, where we then were settled in with a family.
And you had been properly welcomed to West
And I had been properly welcomed. And that wasn't the most crazy thing that's ever happened to me with that train.
As a Peace Corps volunteer, and then public health specialist, including with USAID, Leah Petit has seen firsthand the impact of global health programs, not only in lives saved, full stop, but in global stability and security. And when she saw these programs being dismantled and former colleagues' motives questioned, she took action, starting Global Development Interrupted, a podcast and Substack that documents the lives and work of those affected when U.S. foreign assistance was cut, and tragically, the suffering around the world that is becoming impossible to ignore. It is a project we believe in. I'm Christopher Wurst, and this is
Soft
Power.
Powerful.
Soft
Power.
Powerful stories.
Powerful.
Soft
Powerful. Stories.
I grew up in Eugene, Oregon. My dad was a drummer in his youth. He made enough money when he was in his 20s to buy a huge plot of land outside of Eugene, out in the woods. And so I grew up on 7 acres out in the middle of the woods with all of these different, animals, dogs, cats, ducks. I used to also take care of the farmers' animals that were around us. So, I worked on a sheep ranch. They were our good neighbors. I took care of Highland cattle. They are as scary as they look. Don't go into the pasture with them. And then there's Eugene, Oregon, which was 10 to 15 minutes away. I think that it is well known as sort of a hippie place. And many of the Deadheads, the huge fans of the Grateful Dead, they all sort of ended up in Eugene for some reason. But also, Jerry Garcia's wives ended up in Eugene. His first wife was one of the neighbors in my area. I remember people talking about her, Mountain Girl. I think her name's Carolyn, but people knew her as a Mountain Girl. But Eugene also has Nike. So it's also known as a place for running, Tracktown, USA. And then people don't know this, and this is my theory. We can debate it. But The Simpsons is based on Eugene and Springfield. Eugene is Pleasantville, the upper crust, nice town. And then Springfield, which is right next to Eugene, is Springfield. So there's all these fun things, right? We have the Grateful Dead, we got the Deadheads, got this hippie space. I personally rebelled as a child from tie-dye. I wore a lot of Gap. We all have our moments. was thinking about, I saw the question, who is your hero? And my immediate thought was my mom and dad. I grew up in a space where I knew, every single day I knew that I was loved and I was appreciated and I was valued. And my parents gave me that. And it's from there that I had the strength to go and try new things, challenge myself, because I always knew that I could come home and be appreciated. I also knew that they would fight like the devil if I was ever in trouble. From their love, I have this strength to learn and challenge myself. And so I give them a lot of credit for creating that space for me to go out and experience the world versus hiding from it. But the other side of Eugene, and this is something that I discovered when I went to the University of Oregon, is that Eugene also has a very dark past. We had sundown laws where anyone of color had to exit the city before sundown. In policies for real estate, it would say you can't sell to Jewish people or people of color, which are still there. They're ignored, but they were still written there. And when I went to the University of Oregon, I was met with more people that were not white. And I realized that my life growing up in Eugene was lovely and it was a gift, but it was also just a lot of nice white people getting along without being confronted by any sort of discordance of not being the same. And when I went to the University of Oregon, I realized that there were others that were living in my community that were not having that same experience. So that underlying tension and history in my city, I think really shaped, again, how I saw the world. That my perspective is one view and one account for how the world works, but that is not everyone's account. I was always interested in the outside world because I knew that things weren't just Eugene, Oregon. There was other cultures, other languages, other things. And I stumbled upon People-to-People Ambassadors, which is this program that takes kids, and I started in middle school, takes kids and they just teach and expose them to a new place in the world. And so my first trip was to Australia, and it was all around the ecology of Australia. And so that was fascinating, and I think that probably gave me courage to continue to do it. And then there was a second program where I got to go to Eastern Europe. That was in the 90s, and so you could still see the remnants of communism there and what building back looked like in East Berlin and in Budapest and the Czech Republic. I guess it was Czechoslovakia then. That kind of gave me a taste for wanting to see more and do more. When I went to college, I remember having this moment where I was like, oh man, I got to figure out my major. What am I going to declare? There was this really cool class called International Development. And we took this course and then we each had to pretend we were assigned a role. And someone got USAID, someone got the World Bank. I was given Sri Lanka, and I had to put out the case as to why I deserved funding to support a program. But one of the underlying currents of all of it was how much support was needed in their health sector in order for their workforce to be vibrant, in order for there to be stability within families and communities. And so that made me realize that, yes, I am interested in international studies, declaring that as my major. And I think that health is an underlying need across the world to be strong, have a strong health sector in order for us to be a better, more stable, secure, happier society. Thinking of myself in my 20s, right, I'm being confronted with Eugene was wonderful for me, but not so nice for other people. You can't always just trust one perception of what it is. And so for international development and health, I thought, well, let me go see. Let me go see if this is something that is where I should be putting my time and effort. Let me go into Peace Corps as a health agent. And so that's what I did. However, along the way, I met this guy, and he was going to do the Peace Corps. And so I talked to him, and I was like, so how did you do, what's the process? And then we fell in love. Then we ended up getting married and doing the Peace Corps together. And so I had the privilege of being able to go to a post with my husband. And he did agriculture and I did health. I went into the Peace Corps with very little in terms of expectations. I knew really nothing about Cameroon. I don't think I knew about Cameroon until they told me that was the country that I would be going to. I had to look it up on the map. Cameroon is a fascinating country. Everyone should look it up. They call it Africa in miniature as well because it has all of the different resources there. It has the desert, it has the jungle, it has the beach. It also has 400 languages. They have pygmies there as well. It's just like this incredible space. And it was also first colonized by the Portuguese, and that's why it's Cameroons. And then the Germans showed up, but then the English took over the German side, which is the Northwest and the Southwest, and that's where they speak English. And then the rest of the country is Francophone, and that's where the French were. We end up in Yaoundé, which is the capital city, and they say, guess what? You're a Peace Corps volunteer. You're representing the United States. Look nice, be nice, and get integrated. Peace Corps puts married couples in spaces where it's more isolated, very remote spaces. And I was put in this village with my husband called Turu. They're pagans, essentially. They would call them pagans, but it's the older religion where you would see women wearing these huge dyed gourds on their head. They have piercings through their nose and ropes all over their arms, and they would drink this traditional alcohol, billy, and you could go to this huge market and sort of see them all come together to meet, buy produce, etc. There was no produce, by the way. It was onions and beans. That's what was there. But, onions, beans, and Billy Bill, and you had a good time. But the reason that they still had this group of people in Turu is because it was isolated on top of the mountains, the Madras Mountains. And so to get to my village from Yaoundé, you would get on the train. The train would be like 36 to 48 hours. From the train, you would get on a bus to Maroua, which was in the extreme north, and that was a 10-hour bus ride. From the bus, you would get in a bush taxi, which is just like, a van, a Nissan van, that you would then sit 5 to a row. The seats were for 4. You would sit 5. You'd get in there, pack yourself in, and then for like an hour, go to Mokolo. From Mokolo, you would find your motorcyclist, and you would get on the back of a motorcycle and go up the mountain. When I first did it, we were greeted by these motorcyclists that were really excited to bring the new Peace Corps volunteers to the village. And then there was also this woman, which was me. So they were like, oh, there's a woman and 2 guys. And they were like super excited and like showing off. And I got on the back of this motorcycle and he took off, like just went down this dirt road, the fastest I've ever been. And we hit this hill and the motorcycle jumped into the air, like we made air, landed. And I remember I was weak at this point. I didn't have the stomach muscles yet for being on a motorcycle for 2 hours. And I just smacked him in the back of the head with my helmet. And I thought, I don't care. Don't do that. And he was very quiet for the rest of the ride. And it served him right. There was no electricity, there was no running water, there was no cell phone reception, there was nothing. It is the Sahel. We're on top of a mountain, so the air is thinner but dusty because you would get the Maritan winds that would come in that would bring in these dust storms. It's incredibly dry and hot. There is a tree overhead And there are a lot of children everywhere asking, who are you? What are you doing here? But in Hide, so I have no idea what they're saying at that time. The market's up above me, so I was sort of down on the hill. There's a wall around my compound. And then you open these iron doors and you go inside and everything is cement, everything is dusty. And then a bedroom with, a big bed with a mosquito net, which was like clutch because at night you could tuck your mosquito net underneath your mattress and you did not have to worry about one, getting malaria, but two, like cockroaches climbing on you or other insects like scorpions or snakes. It felt like this nice protective barrier. There were no windows. It's not like you could shut out wildlife. They were coming through regardless. We went to bed quite early, but if we wanted to stay up, we would have to read by candlelight or by your headlamp, but you would choose the candlelight because you didn't want the batteries to run out on your headlamp. And I remember laying down on a mat next to the front door, and the front door had a screen. Not a great screen, but it was there. There were holes in it, but still. So the screen was shut. And I'm on a mat with my candle. We had a small cat because we thought the cat would get rid of rats. That was not the case. And I'm reading this book. And then suddenly I hear, and I'm like, what is that noise? Remember, it is candlelight, so my vision is like very cut off. But I'm hearing this, and it's on the outside, on the porch, right next to me by this like wall, but I can hear it. I walk over with my candle and I look out and there is this huge black scorpion, like the kind that you see in the Disney movies with like the big tail and it's black and it's like, I'm evil and I'm going to hurt you. And it's rushing to my light. It's attracted to the candlelight. And so it's climbing up the screen door. It's like, trying to get to me. And I scream, I'm like, Brad, there's a scorpion. And he's like, okay, well, I have the cat. I was like, well, that's great. I'm going to die, but you have the cat. So he goes and he gets this shovel. I'm on the inside. Brad is now on the outside with a shovel. The scorpion is climbing towards me. I'm watching it. It's watching me. Brad comes from behind and hits the scorpion, and it explodes everywhere, like all over the screen. There was so much blood in that scorpion. It was like this huge, it was like 2 fists of blood, like all over the screen. And we hit it, we killed it, and we looked at it, and we were like, well, now what? Like, what do we do now? And I just thought, well, let's go to bed. But that huge blood spot remained on the screen the entire time we were there as like a reminder of what could happen. People in Truro were known as being mean because that's how they had kept a lot of their culture for so long. And so I remember being in Mokolo and talking to Cameroonians in Mokolo, and they said, oh, wow, you're in Truro? That's a hard place to live. They're so mean there. I was a health agent, and one of the things that I decided to do was during prenatal visits, I would do like health talks with the nurse. And we're talking about, again, Truro was a space where there was no real local economy. So women were married and then they were left in the village and men would travel down to Yaoundé. And we've already talked about how long that was, like a 3 to 4 day journey just to get to the capital city. And men tend to just want to stay there. Like, why would you want to come back to the village? So women were left on these mountains without much in terms of information or education. And so I showed up. I decided, okay, well, I'm just going to teach you all about your body since you're here, pregnant. Like, what should you expect? What's happening? What does the baby look like? When the baby comes out, like, these are my tips on nutrition. These are thoughts on oral rehydration. And I started getting, like, the prenatal clinic got maybe 5 or 10 women. And by the time that I left, we were getting hundreds. And I was so well known then in the village that instead of the local language where they would say, oh, look at the Nasara, look at the white woman, this woman passed by and said, Kaglafko Markwa, which means like, what's up, woman, which is a common phrase that would be used to greet anyone in that village. And so I just felt so successful that I got a what's up. I came in and I was an outsider. And I started from a place of, I am an outsider. I have these tools. I'm happy to work with you in partnership to figure out what's going to be the best for you. And it's something that we were taught in Peace Corps. You don't come in teaching, ask what they want to be taught or what they want from you. And I began doing just the health education just broadly to see what would happen. I use my presence as a woman with my husband's work. So I would attend his meetings, which would allow women to attend his meetings. And then that's when women's groups would start approaching me and asking for support and help. And I think that was the moment where I was like, okay, now I'm starting to make a difference because they're looking to me. They're coming to me saying, we want to do this. How can you support my endeavors in this way with what I had? And so I was able to help them. You know, they had their own business plan, but I was able to get them access to banks in Mokolo. I started going to more church groups and speaking. There was this one time I went to this church group. We were talking about oral rehydration salts. So that's when it's water with salt, so that when you're severely dehydrated, this is what you would take in order to essentially, like for children, not die of diarrhea, because diarrhea takes all of the liquids and electrolytes out of your body. And so if you don't get oral rehydration, you could die of dehydration because of diarrhea. And so I was teaching them about oral rehydration, and I was like, you can also take it after a bill, like the alcohol, it helps with your hangovers, like just use it, just have it in your home. And I went back and I was talking with this women's group and I was like, how did it go? How's oral rehydration? And this one woman said, well, I gave it to my child and they started to vomit. It was not good for them. And this other woman stopped her and said, well, you did it incorrectly. You put too much salt in it, and then corrected the methodology. And then the other woman immediately accepted it and was like, oh, okay, I will try it this other way. And then a pagan woman, she was like, yeah, and it really does help with your hangovers. And in that moment too, I was like, oh, good. Like they're taking what I have brought to them and making it their own. And that's when I started working with women's groups to know the information and teach it to other groups, empowering them to say like, okay, I'm doing this, sure, but like you can also do this and you can also educate your different groups across this village of 50,000 people, by the way. So it was like an expansive area. So the village that I lived in was essentially just a neighborhood of a couple thousand, but it was 50,000 people that spoke Hide and lived on this mountain. When we were in Cameroon, we would get two different perspectives from Cameroonians. One would be, why aren't you doing more as Americans to support us, to ensure that we don't die? And then the second one was, you need to leave because you are a Band-Aid and we can't face our problems if you keep covering up what this political party is doing. And so I left knowing that I had empowered a lot of women to have healthier lives in that village. But I also left questioning how far should development go in sort of covering up the poor leadership of the country and the accountability that leadership has to its people. So I left and I went to Columbia University to get my degree in public health. And I remember talking to a professor about this issue. Like, I don't know where I sit with development. I see the good and I also see the bad. He showed me this interesting data where it looked at life expectancy across the globe. And for every country, you go up. It's just natural. Like the more we learn, the more innovation there is across all different sectors, life expectancy goes up. Unless you are hit by a man-made disaster, a natural disaster, or HIV/AIDS. And then you see this drop in life expectancy. Same with GDP. You would see a drop in the GDP of those countries. And I actually just went back to that graph a couple months ago, and I noticed that, again, we saw a drop in life expectancy because of COVID-19 across the globe. So he said, while development is not always good, it can be used poorly, there are instances where it is necessary. And I think we have seen that across time. Even when I think about Europe after World War II, the building back of Europe and creating a partnership and strong trade partners with that continent was something that has benefited the United States for a very long time. And the same can be said if done appropriately with other continents and countries.
If you came on your own podcast, what would the story that you would want listeners to hear about your time in USAID be?
So if I were to go on Global Development Interrupted, an amazing podcast hosted by myself, I was thinking about this. When we are in a stable place and well-resourced and have our needs met, we make better decisions. When I was there in Cameroon, they talked a lot about choosing peace, even though there was the threat of violence from their leadership. Then when I was working in northern Nigeria, there was daily violence where we would learn about how one Fulfulde shepherd had allowed their goats to eat the Hausa man's field. And so that Hausa man, because the field had been eaten, his family could die of starvation over the dry period. And so then he went after the Fulfulde man who was a teenager. And there was this intense conflict in the village that we were in, and it was all around the threat of death, whether that be from starvation or from a mob riot on the Fulfulde, the Fulani people, because of what this one teenage boy had done. They would talk about, the murders in a couple villages over resources. And so when I think about why is global development important, it is creating that stability for people to make better decisions for themselves and their community. So when you think about terrorism, people don't choose one day they wake up and they're like, I want to go kill a bunch of people. They are upset with the way that their life has gone. They're upset with the way they have been treated. There is a desperation for change. And there is somebody telling them that violence is the answer for that. And so they buy into it. If you are well-fed, healthy, have a good job, and stable in your community, in your place, you're not going to risk that to go and seek violence on others. And so when I think about the good that global development does, it's creating that safety for all of us, the safety for the individual, the choices that individual makes, that makes the community safer, which then makes the world a safer place. Global development can never be top-down. If you tell people what to do and you give them money, they'll do it. That doesn't mean it's the right thing to do. And it's not the thing that's going to be sustained. I worked in HIV and AIDS, but my background was in capacity strengthening and partnership. And how do we work with local organizations so that they could lead and prioritize what they wanted to do within their community, their country? And so a lot of it, too, was how do we support organizations to become stronger, especially if you're giving them U.S. government money? Like, how do we ensure that their checks and balances are strong enough to handle that amount of money that's coming through? The countries that we were working in, they are not without resources or strengths There are challenges just like anywhere else. And so I see development for the future, I hope, is working with people in partnership and in saying, here is your country, here's your community. What do you want to prioritize? What do you want to strengthen? And how do we make that happen so it achieves the goal that you have set for yourself, for your community, for your country? That's where you see things really take root and stay because people own it. Ownership is very important. I started Global Development Interrupted because I was appalled by the way that my creative, brilliant, and mission-driven colleagues were being talked about. I have been so lucky to work with people who really care about the world and have used all the tools in their toolboxes to think about how they can make not only the world a safer place, but how that impacts the United States. And for them to be called radical lunatics, criminals, to hear that people in their Facebook world were writing to them and telling them how glad they were that they'd lost their job, it was just horrendous. And I realized that our narrative was being taken over. And I also think that we should talk about what development is, the good and the bad of it. I used Global Development Interrupted to, one, meet people that were behind it. So I wanted to put a face to what was being said about these different individuals so that there could be truth instead of misconception. And then I also wanted a space to talk about what was being done, why it was important, how it affects Americans, because I don't think that that line is being drawn. One of the things that sticks with me is a story from Peace Corps. This woman in this village, she had children, and her husband, was somewhere in the capital, one of the big cities in Yaoundé. And she was by herself, a farmer. They were all farmers, the subsistence farmers. And she died. She died because she had been worked so hard, her heart gave out. And all of those children that she had suddenly lost their home, their safety, their security, their food, because she was worked to the bone. And that's not okay. I think that's always been a motivating factor for me. How do we empower people to have a life where they can live, at least in a space of safety and security, happiness and health for them and their children, similar to what my parents did for me, making sure that I was taken care of and loved so that I could go out and do better things in the world.
That means we're coming to the end of this episode, but I want to give Leah the chance to respond to our Aunt Deb.
How can something be our fault if we literally didn't do anything? Isn't it safer not to stick our nose in everybody else's problems?
This idea that Americans can be alone and safe is a false one. Regardless of what we do, we will impact the world. We are now a global community. And it has never been more clear to me than in, again, Nigeria and Cameroon. 2 stories from Nigeria and Cameroon. I was in Cameroon for 2 years, and I went to the same bank, Credit du Sahel, and I worked with the same banker. And we would talk and we would chat, and it was fine. In 2008, near the end of my term with Peace Corps, Barack Obama was elected president, and it changed everything. We came down off the mountain. Again, remember, there's no communication. We've got nothing. We come down, we learn Barack Obama has become the president of the United States. People are driving by on motorcycles, shouting at us, Obama! I look at the Bush taxi terminal. There are pictures of Obama up. You were listening to radio shows talking about the incredible nature of him taking over and how can they harness this energy in different countries in Africa to see change that they want in their country. And I'm at the bank, because that's why I came off the mountain, to get my rent money. And I'm talking to the banker, and he looks at me and he says, I never liked Americans. I never trusted you because you were American. But now I do, because you've elected Obama. And that gives me pause now as how we are perceived globally because of our current president. So immediately I know that I am less safe when I travel abroad. But also we are less safe in the United States because people think poorly of us. And what does that mean? When their life, especially when USAID was dismantled, and I want everyone to know that when USAID was dismantled, there is now a model stating that 14 million people who would have lived will now die. So all of this healthcare, all of these programs stopped and everyone's life got worse. What does that look like? And how are people going to react to us? What kind of danger does that put us in? And now we have created an environment of pain. So there is going to be something down the road that will affect us because of that animosity being built towards us.
Leah Petit is a strategist and program manager with 2 decades experience leading initiatives that strengthen partnerships and community resilience. She began her career in the Peace Corps in northern Cameroon, which led to a lifelong commitment to locally led development and community health. As a senior advisor in USAID's Office of HIV and AIDS, she helped shape national and local strategies to sustain health outcomes while overseeing multi-million-dollar programs. Today, she is the founder and host of Global Development Interrupted, a podcast and Substack platform that documents the people behind U.S. foreign assistance and what happened when it was cut. Through storytelling, she highlights public servants and partners whose work once strengthened democracy, stability, and health worldwide, while exploring what their loss means for communities at home and abroad. It's an important project that is highly recommended. To learn more, go to globaldevelopmentinterrupted.substack.com or Global Development Interrupted wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you so much for listening. We appreciate it. If you haven't followed us already wherever you get your podcasts, please do so. Please leave a rating. It means a lot. And not only that, but it helps get those algorithms moving this show to the ears that need to hear it. You can find out much more by visiting our website at softpowerfulstories.org. Our show's logo was designed by Kate Furby, and my friend Kathy Zilski voices Dubious Aunt Deb, who, of course, she is nothing like, but she does it perfect. My name is Christopher Wurst. I'm the host and producer of Soft Powerful Stories. Until next time.